Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much, Navigio, Cornelia, and Hedda, for showing us around their office and answering all of our questions. It's finally time for our main guest of honor tonight, Caroline Farberger. Welcome to the Stockholm School of Economics. How are you?
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Caroline, you have a very interesting background within business and engineering, and you actually have a degree in both economics and engineering from the University of Gothenburg and from Chalmers University of Technology. From my perception, you seem like a very goal-driven and ambitious person. Where do you think this drive comes from?
Well, I've always in my life had a drive and a desire to make an impact somehow. I want to create something in the end of my life that has been bigger than myself, and I also want to influence things. And I then thought that maybe with a solid educational background, my options in future life would be greater. But also, I'm kind of a high achiever. I'm motivated by receiving good grades, which gives me more energy to study even harder. So a bit of a high achiever also.
Yeah, that sounds like something that a lot of us here at SSE can relate to as well, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, speaking about being quite of a high achiever and being ambitious and driven, can you tell us a little bit more about your career journey and what positions and companies you've been at?
Well, when I graduated in actually 30 years ago now, I moved to Stockholm and joined McKinsey and Company as a consultant, where I stayed for 6 years, focusing on financial services. And then I decided I want a line management career, which I did at Trygg-Hansa, a major insurer. But then came the turn of the millennium, 2000, and it was a dot-com boom. So a friend and I started a dot-com startup, VC funded, which was great fun. But after a year and a half, we had to fold. The income didn't arrive. So I rejoined Trygg-Hansa and the line management career, which I pursued on various higher levels, both in Sweden, Denmark, and the UK. Up until a headhunter called 6 years ago and asked me to come to ICA Försäkring, which had just been founded, a small startup in insurance. And for the past 6 years, I've been CEO of ICA Insurance, building that company in rapid growth, 800 million turnover and solid profitability now, which has been a great entrepreneurial journey. But now, later on this spring, I will switch industries to venture capital, and I will become partner and working chairwoman with Well Street, a tech-focused VC.
Yeah, interesting. And as you mentioned, it has actually been highlighted quite a lot in business media that you are making this career change and becoming partner and working share of Well Street. And how come you're making this change now?
Well, I've come to the conclusion that I love entrepreneurship. I feel that my current journey with ICA Försäkring is a great entrepreneurial journey, and I want to make more, but not only one. But by working in VC, I see an opportunity to be very hands-on and support several entrepreneurs or founders, which are portfolio companies to us, so that I can be part of that entrepreneur and investment community. It gives me great energy.
Yeah, interesting. So, going back then to talking a little bit more about your time at ICA Insurance, when you were there, you, as you mentioned, were the CEO, and you also actually underwent a gender correction, which has been spoken quite a lot about in the media. Could you tell us a little bit more about this journey and how it has been met within your work and within the industry?
Yes, I'm happy to. I'm kind of a late bloomer when it comes to figuring out my gender identity. It was at the age of 50 that I dared to investigate that. I've had inklings, feminine inklings, during my life up until then, but didn't have the courage to really explore it. But maybe with age comes also personal maturity, and I thought to myself, who am I living my life for? Is it for someone else or for me? And I determined that life is too short not to live my life as who I am. So I picked up some courage and decided I need to do this. I need to live as who I am. And I was afraid, would I lose my socioeconomic platform? Would there be consequences on my job? Would I be respected in Swedish business society? Because after all, no one had done this from a CEO position before. But everything went extremely well. I informed my employer 5 months prior to my transition. I got tremendous support from them. So in September 2018, I did my gender transition from one day to another, and I was met with love, respect, and support unilaterally from both colleagues and many people I didn't know. And since then, it's been a very successful journey. I've only been met with positive reactions. I'm very happy that we as a society are in a place where you can actually do this.
Yeah, that's actually such an inspiring story and very, very brave of you, I must say. So, talking a little bit more about your job and your position as the CEO, do you feel
Mm.
like you changed anything in your leadership and how you performed your job after becoming Caroline?
Well, that's an interesting question. I remember in interviews just after my transition, 3.5 years ago, I was very sort of cocky and said that I wouldn't change anything because, after all, my leadership is something that comes out of my experience and values, and those haven't shifted. So I thought, but. Coming from a majority, being a middle-aged white male on a senior level, which is a privileged position, and then be part of a minority. I mean, being a woman on a senior position is unfortunately still a minority thing, made me change perspectives. And I got feedback from people I previously worked with that I had actually not had an inclusive leadership style. I had been quite authoritative and used my leadership team to drive my way. Now I've changed leadership style to be much more inclusive, much more observant to how people belonging to a minority um, feels the culture. And so I'm an inclusion junkie now.
Yeah, that's something that I like to hear at least. So you talked a little bit about this, that you sort of got a new perspective when you became Caroline, and that you got this new perspective on equality and
Mm.
things like that in the industry. So how do you think that, like, we who are the future of this industry here at
Mm.
SSE, how do you think that we can actively work to sort of prevent these inequalities?
That's a hugely important thing to think about, because uh, when I was a student, and also through my entire business life as a male, I genuinely thought that the prerequisites or the platforms were equal for men and women. But it only took me a few months to live as a woman to realize that I had totally misunderstood that. We are unfortunately not at a place where everything is equal yet. And that's because there are so much social structures, norms, and privileges in businesses. So my advice would be to be very observant about these privileges. If you're a woman, you should take the courage to live and behave as you are, not to fall in the trap to see that, oh, I need to behave or look like a man or adopt male behaviors in order to come through at society. Yes, short term it might be sort of a tactical advantage, but long term you don't have the energy for that. You need to live your business life and your entire life as you are, and take up the space that you deserve. Easy to say, but that's the way we need to go.
Yeah.
But even more important, what would I say to my son, who's now still in the gymnasium? That yes, there are privileges if you grow up as a white heterosexual male in today's society. You might not be aware of it because you might think that things is probably the same for everyone else. Well, thing is, it's not. If you are privileged, then it's your responsibility to educate yourself around those privileges and share those privileges. Make sure that the space you can command in a room include others, lift others in the organization, because true diversity as a workplace makes more successful companies. So be aware of the privileges we unfortunately still have. Be aware of things like unconscious bias, and how we can work with that.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting. And we, in the second year business economics, we actually took a class called Global Challenges just before Christmas. And we talked a lot about this notion of norm criticism, that it can be so hard to see the privileges and to see the norm if you're yourself is within that norm. So I think the things that you're bringing up are so relevant and really, really interesting. So looking at it more from a organizational perspective, you said previously that you're kind of this equality junkie. So how do you
Yes.
think that, or do you have any like concrete examples of how you work within ICA Insurance with
Yeah.
equality?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have a leadership team where we are 5 men and 5 women. Yet, yes, that's good from a statistics point of view, and it looks good on paper also. But that's only a start. The most important thing is the meeting culture, where I, as chairwoman of that management team, I see it as my responsibility to create an atmosphere where everyone can be themselves. For example, I might have a few men in the team who are like, alpha males, having very strong opinions on a lot of matters, and maybe have a strong voice. And I have people, maybe women, who not always share their opinion. It is my responsibility as a leader to actually invite and make sure that the speaking time is balanced so that everyone can and actually also does contribute with his or her opinions. And that's a culture thing. And as leader of the team, as a CEO, culture is my responsibility. And I need to be very aware what's happening in the room, who speaks, who does not speak. How can everyone be themselves?
Yeah, that sounds very, very wise of you. And I think the business industry would come such a long way if everyone had this way of thinking as you have. And as you said earlier, when doing this gender correction and basically throughout your career and everything, you've had to have a lot of courage. And I'm just thinking that, like, do you have any tips for us, both for women or for someone who's thinking about doing a similar journey as you have, or just for women who's thinking about going into a male dominant industry? How can we try to have this courage, and how can we become as brave as you can, or as you are?
Well, thank you for that. Well, I look forward to see more and more female role models in business, and most importantly, women who dare to be themselves and not try to fit into a norm. We need to encourage one another. Be outspoken. Make sure that you are visible in media, social media, etc. And be personal. Be yourself. Because after all, in business society as a whole, there's actually a fairly equal gender split, especially on lower levels on the big companies and big employers. But we need to share more inspirational examples of how you can be yourself and highlight those women in business who are strong enough to be themselves, because they are a true inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Um, I'm thinking that we're going to wrap up with one last question, and then we're going to move on to the last sequence, which is our 5 burning questions. But before that, would you give us your 3 best tips for succeeding both within your career, but also with your studies? Do you have any 3 best tips for us?
Find your passion and follow it, because if you're passionate about a subject or a certain industry, make sure to stake out your future there, because you will do a better job,
Yeah.
as opposed to try to fit into a norm that your parents did something or your friends do something. Find your passion and follow it. And secondly, make sure that you select a leader and or employer who is inclusive, where you can be yourself. If you find yourself at a place where you cannot be who you are, then be strong and walk away. And finally, dare to be personal. Dare to be yourself, even if it means that you dress very individually or behave very individually, because life is too short to live as someone else than you are.
Yeah, those are some really, really good tips. I'm hoping that a lot of people will take them in and try to internalize them. So I'm thinking that we're actually going to wrap it up now with our 5 burning questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so question number 1. What time do you typically wake up every day?
5:20.
Oh, wow, that's really early. Who is your inspiration?
Barack Obama.
Oh, nice. What is the best fashion tips you've ever been given?
Select cool colors, which goes hand in hand with my eyes.
All right. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Dare to be yourself. Live the life as who you are.
Yeah. And what is something new that is happening in your life right now?
Changing industries, being a venture capitalist.
Yes, nice. Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for coming tonight and sharing your amazing experiences and your very, very inspiring and brave journey. I hope that you've enjoyed this interview just as much as I have, and I hope all the viewers and listeners. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.